Hey everyone, hope you're having a great Tuesday. So today I have been working on finishing up the Nano Gauntlet for my Smart Hulk from Avengers Endgame, and as part of the new direction the channel is taking, I wanted to drop by and give you a quick look at what I've been doing to finish up this piece that I started quite a while ago now. There was still a pretty good amount of work to do, namely with the fingers and some pieces that I had sculpted inside the hand. So what I kind of had to focus on was, first of all, finishing up those finger designs and just kind of extending what I had already done, but also I had to paint inside the hand, and unfortunately, as I showed in my first tutorial video, I do use a push pin as my primary tool for painting, and a push pin can't exactly fit deep inside a big fig's hand, so this is where I have to employ a sewing pin or sometimes a toothpick, but in this case the longer tack. But first I'm painting the black rivets into the top designs to insert those gold little rivets, and they kind of start as splotches before. Also, like I mentioned in the first tutorial, you kind of have to go over with your alternative color. In this case it's obviously black as the base color, and you just keep overlapping paint. That's certainly what I had to do for the thumb design that wraps around, and essentially I'm creating three back-to-back lines wrapping around the thumb, so it kind of gets tedious because gold paint can be pretty thick if you don't thin it out, and so I'm continuing to overlap while also making sure I'm distributing the paint properly. And before long I got to the back of the thumb, and essentially this was where I wanted to do a bit more red highlighting, because I have the primary color of the gauntlet as obviously a metallic dark red color, the crimson color by Lumiere, and now I'm continuing those brighter red highlights that you see running throughout it, where it's basically a regular matte red color that's being used to kind of make the whole piece vibrant. And so I'm going in those outlined areas on the thumb that I already painted and just trying to fill in around those edges with red so that I can then overlap right in the center with more metallic dark red. Now, it isn't that a push pin can't necessarily reach within the inside of the big fig hand, it's just you're much more limited in what you can do, and it's just generally more frustrating. Whereas if you have the straightforward longer push pin, the longer tack, you can just kind of reach right in there. And kind of going against what I said in the first tutorial, I am having to paint downward a little bit, and when I have to paint at a downward angle, actually positioning the point of the pin toward the surface of what I'm painting, it's actually easier if you apply more paint on that area, on that specific part of the surface, so that you can then pull from that bit of paint that you've dropped in and then successfully distribute it around how you want. It certainly didn't go off exactly as I had hoped, as I did have to go back in with more metallic dark red and refine the edges of the black that I was trying to insert onto that center piece. Painting on this scale is always about trial and error. You're never going to paint perfectly. There are always going to be mistakes along the way with quite literally everything you make, and it's just a part of the process, correcting as you go. Finally, up top, I painted these little rivets right there on each finger. This was the last bit of detail that was obviously going to be present on the Nano Gauntlet. I wanted this to look really good and hyper detailed, so that unfortunately for me involved three specific designs on each finger. You had one line in the center and then two kind of rounded off strips that have to line up right next to each one, and that goes for each finger. And then on each of those strips with the rounded off tip, I had to fill in with the lighter matte red, again to add more of that saturation to the overall piece. And I couldn't do it in just one gesture on each of those designs, so it's just a matter of using tiny bits of paint, going in and just dabbing and just trying to fill them in without going over the black edges of each of those designs. Eventually I recognized some wear happening on the edges of the hand, so I wound up having to repaint some areas several times, and eventually I did seal these areas over. But sealing over areas like this to prevent this kind of wear and tear is going to be a topic for another video, but you essentially have to use brush on glue to prevent this. So that's really it for the Nano Gauntlet from Avengers Endgame, and I'm going to add a little bit more detail on the tips of the fingers and within the hand on that silver section a little bit, and I'll post that over on the Patreon page. However, I wanted to give you guys a look at this really quick, as I'm excited to now continue painting the rest of Hulk's jumpsuit. It's going to be a lot of paint work though, and unfortunately Thor is going to take extra time for me to produce because I'm actually waiting on some really good custom parts for him. So Smart Hulk has shifted to being a singular solo showcase, which I'm not super happy about, but this is just kind of how it's working out. Of course, course, all of that progress to come, along with the progress I made here today, is all up over on the Patreon page first. And I'm also going to be taking the rest of this footage and put together a video going a little bit more in depth on some of the more specific tiny things about this whole process here. So I'm going to go. It's been really satisfying to complete this whole thing because I'm pretty happy with how the sculpt turned out. I really didn't know if this whole Nano Gauntlet thing was going to work out, but I think I can say that it definitely did. And of course, you can catch me over on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and now TikTok if you want to see all my digital Photoshop edits and other montage clips that I'm posting over on TikTok. So yeah, all right, everybody. Well, stay safe, take care, and enjoy the rest of your day.